that was sick. What's up everybody, Heyde here. I am a film composer and I'm doing another Composer Reacts video today. We're gonna be checking out the Dead Space soundtrack, the original one composed by Jason Graves, in celebration of the new Dead Space remake that is coming out or has already come out. I haven't listened to the soundtrack on its own, so I'm really excited to check it out and pick it apart with you all and talk about what I think is cool. So hopefully you enjoy the video. All right, let's just kick it off with the main theme here. Ooh. Wow. So already I'm getting some kind of like Bioshock vibes, which really is like 20th century classical music. Lots of texture-based stuff, and it's got some tonality in it, but it's really obscured. And you have lots of like dissonant, clashy things to kind of keep it feeling dark and tense. Also, lots of like low woodwind stuff, which is awesome. So that must be our theme. There's also a technique being used in here called sul ponticello. So if you listen to the strings, you're hearing some like metallic gritty elements. What that basically is we normally have tremolo when you take the violin or the string instrument and you bow like that, right? But if you do it slightly closer to the bridge, you get this metallic sound. So normally tremolo sounds like this. But when you do it close to the bridge, it sounds like this. Classic like horror device. And if you listen really carefully, you can actually hear that in here. Great stuff. Great stuff. Really, really good. Let's keep going. Yeah, this is fantastic. I'm getting Howard Shore vibes, are you? It reminds me of Lord of the Rings a little bit. Howard Shore tends to do stuff that's very, kind of shifts chords. So. And I can hear that too. Also notice one thing that's really cool about the soundtrack so far is even though it gets tonal or it gets dissonant, they're usually intermingled. So like you have tonal stuff, but you also have dissonant strings in the background. And so it always makes things feel a little bit unsettled. So rhythmic. I want to point out something here. The rhythmic element is really what drives this whole section of this action music. Notice how percussion is being used to kind of help. So sometimes you have these big crashes like psh, these cymbals that are choked. Choke means like stopping the cymbal. And then you have anvils, which are more like clang. So you have this contrast in the percussion. You also have like bass drum, which is hitting. And that supports kind of the different feels. So it's almost like an orchestral drum kit in a way, if you listen to it. Lots of techniques too. There's also what's called stopped French horn in here. So it could be stopped or muted, but normally French horn is kind of like this, you know, beautiful, lush sounding instrument. Sounds like this. Right, but if you mute it, so they put in mutes in the actual bell of the instrument, you get this. I use it all the time, and you can even play it nice and short, and then you get the kind of like nice buzzy attack, which is cool. Classic. That's a bunch of strings playing pizzicato, like random notes, so they're plucking. Sounds like insects. This stuff, by the way, particularly difficult to do with VSTs, virtual instruments. Which is why you usually just get an orchestra. I'll take a second too also to mention that if you do want to use VSTs for this, it's best to get pre-recorded libraries generally. So like I use what's called Cage by 8DO. They're not paying me to say this. I just happen to use these a ton. But Cage is good because it actually has almost exactly that kind of effect in there under their textures. So you can go to like cluster pits. That's the idea. So like if I was doing this kind of a cue, I'd probably be layering. Right? I would have a layer like that. I would have a layer of the kind of non-vibrato warbly sound. So something higher up in the register, like just for some sustained texture. And then obviously it'd have that last aspect, which was the low string thing. And that's how you kind of accomplish that texture. You have all three elements. You have kind of rhythmic stuff, you have high, warbly, unsettled stuff, and you have a slightly low tonal element to it. So there's a nice balance of texture, even when it's not tonal music. Oh, what is that? That's deeply unsettling. Sound like the beginning, I think, was a flute, potentially. Like low flute. Flute can sound creepy. That's the French horn again. Oh, that was sick. I like, you notice that? See, the anvil is what really helps that, right? So if you just had the bass hit, like you just had a bass hit, you would lack the high end to really define that bass hit. So it's the anvil that adds that extra element that lets you know that it's like, boom, big hit. I actually just added in very similar hits into my library. So this is just a bass hit, right? But if you have the anvil, you get that nice percussive effect. So here what's going on is we basically have like a low trombone element that's swelling in, something super dissonant, just like. And I usually, when I do brass, by the way, usually make sure the brass drops off right before the hit because it just sounds a little cooler. So you do like. That's the kind of idea. It's that anvil that really makes it. Without it, just be. Or. It's just like, kind of weak sounding. Nice. Oh, that was almost. So what I would have done there, personally, is. It's gonna sound brighter, so maybe it doesn't fit the context. But he's doing some interesting stuff. So like, he was doing first inversion sometimes. So initially it's like. But now he's keeping the E on the bottom and doing. Or inversions, I've talked about it before, really important way to create some instability, good instability. If you just land on root chords all the time and you just move root, 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 you're being too nice to your audience. You're giving them too much of what's expected and comfortable. You need to create some instability in your music to make it feel like it really lands when it lands. So if we do like. So I'm never landing on the root on the bottom. Those two chords, those last two chords, really like boom, they land. Partially because of the register, because I'm going low, but also because I'm finally giving you a root position chord. Really important. I feel like a lot of composers don't do that enough. Inversions are awesome. Nice. Yeah. Nice use of contrast in the action tracks. Some of them are more rhythmically focused. Some of them are more like texturally focused. This one's in 7/8 primarily, although I think there's some changes. So it's dun 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 dun. Groupings of 2, 2, and 3. This is virtual. So this is actually virtual. The other ones I think were real orchestra, but this one is not. I can tell from the horn and some of the hits like the timpani. But it's interesting. Number one, it really sounds pretty real. You know, like it's a good comparison between the two. And two, I think it's when that happens, I'm always curious why. Oftentimes, I think it has to do with budget. It's like, you know, they realized they wanted another track and they either didn't have time to record it at the studio or was an afterthought after they were done recording. Either way, it's really cool and it works really well. And it's also really interesting as a composer because you get to hear what their mock-ups sounded like, which I think is very fascinating. Like, this sounds really good. I've got you devolving under my skin. That's freaking awesome. That's funny. So it sounds to me like this game actually transitions like to space as it goes on. Could be wrong. Yeah, I'll tell you what, this music is deceptively hard to write. Oh. Yeah, it's great. It's really good. Out of context, all this stuff seems way more dissonant, but when you're in a game, you're playing a game or watching a movie like this, like these techniques are so useful because they really help you add tension. Even the choice of the tonal stuff, listen to how thin and wispy the strings are. It's not like full ensemble. Jesus. That wasn't very nice, Jason. Just a couple left now. Tell you what, the copyist had his work cut out for him. Notating this stuff is a pain in the butt. This is that release, the safe zone. Oh my god! What was that? Gotta hear that one more time. Alright, clearly I guess there's some sort of a cliffhanger or something at the end of that game because that was hilarious. But beautiful, leading up to that moment, like some really beautiful chords in here. Some really nice stuff. And it's, again, it's the level of restraint that Jason's doing here that I think is really impressive because, yeah, when you're spacing out a game this long, you know, and this much music, it's really tempting to just, like, the second you get an action thing, just give it everything you got, you know, but he really saved it and he saved those moments. His nuance is really impressive. So I really enjoyed this. I'm going to have to listen to this more. These techniques are so useful for composers, but people don't do them enough, or it's like very stylized when they do. So props to Jason for this soundtrack. I think it's awesome. Hopefully the remake is good because I heard that the Dead Space series is awesome. And hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can leave a like, subscribe for more. And if you want to support me, you can buy me coffee in the video description. So thanks as always for watching. See you in the next video.